So hey there, I'm Alan Creach with the Plant Farm. There's been a lot of people that have had a lot of questions about propagation, and we're over here in one of the growing houses. And behind me, you can see one of our hanging basket systems. Here at Creach Greenhouse, we actually grow about 100,000 12-inch hanging baskets a year. And so the system behind us is actively working, and it's watering. You wonder, how do you actually take care of these plants? Well, there's got to be some automation. So what's happening is the baskets are moving through, and each one is being watered as it passes through the sensor. And so we're going to talk just a little bit about how to propagate some of these easy to propagate plants, and yet they're also a variety of plant that a lot of people ask about. One is the sedums, and the other is the senecios, of which you can see we've got 3 different varieties of senecios. And so both of these plants are very similar in propagation, so I think we'll just do them together. Whether there's a question about propagating a string of pearls, which we have right here, string of pearls, or whether it's the string of dolphins like we have here, the string of pickles, they're all basically pretty much the same. They're a senecio. And then when you look at the either the burrito, the sedum burrito, or whether it's a sedum burro's tail, pretty much these 2 plants are all sedum morganiums, and so they're identical in propagation. So with that being said, I just want to show you a couple of real quick tricks about how to do that. And what I'm using right now, I'm just using some 2.5-inch pots. We do a lot, probably somewhere around 50,000 of these little 2-inch succulent pots a year right here at the greenhouse. And so real quick, I'm just going to show you how to propagate a couple of these things. Here's some string of pickles here. And there's a lot of different ways to do this. Don't think that this is a very difficult plant, because it's really not. But what I've done is I've taken this pot right here, and it's already pre-wetted. It's very moist. And I'm just going to drop this into some rooting powder. And then I'm just going to very carefully just insert it in the pot and lay it right on the top of the pot. So when I get all done, what I've got is something that looks very similar to that. So with that being said, that's the pickle. And then here's a string of dolphin. And notice on the dolphin, what I did is I just took a stem cutting. So not a terminal bud. The terminal bud is right here, and we'll deal with that in a second. So what I have here in my hand is a stem section of the string of dolphins. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it right here in the rootone, and then I'll take this same tip cutting, and I'm going to put it in the rootone as well. Then I'm just going to lift them out after I've made sure they got just a little bit of coverage on them. And I'm going to insert that stem cutting right into the pot. So that what I have is I've put the stem in the pot, and there it is. It's presented like that. And what will happen is this will root, and then it'll begin to branch right out of there. It'll be a very nice full pot. And when I think in terms of this tip cutting, it's very much the same. It's just that this has a terminal bud already on it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert it in the pot. I'm going to make sure that the stem is in the soil, and I'll leave the bud just sticking out of the pot. Then I'll take another one right here. And what I found is usually it's more than 1 cutting per pot to make a nice full pot. So when we get all done, what we have here is just a real simple presentation like that. You can expect that in 4 to 6 weeks, this is going to be a nice looking pot. If I were selling it, it would be able to sell for your own use there in the home. It's just going to be a very nice looking little plant, and you're going to want to come back and occasionally pinch it. Now with the string of pearls, it's such a long, slender plant. We're going to treat this just a little bit differently. So again, I'm going to set it in the rootone so that I've got good coverage on the actual nodes here. And then on this particular plant, because it's so long, I'm just going to wind it around on top of the soil. So when I get done, what I've really got is just this whole long stem that's in contact with the soil. And we'll see that in just a few weeks. It'll be growing roots and be growing. So when we're propagating one of the morganiums, what we're really looking for is just a section of stem. And what I'm going to do is I'm just cutting off a length here, and then I want to turn that into sections that are approximately 2 inches long will be fine. Now, one thing I want to point out to you is remember which way they're oriented, because cuttings don't really do that well if you're rooting them upside down. So we want to make sure that we have them facing upright, okay? And sometimes that's quite challenging when you look at it. I can see right here, I've cut this one, and it's very, very difficult to see. But what you'll see, if you look at your whole stem section, you'll see that they're actually pointing upward. There's an up and a down on each one of these different pads. So here's our down. I'm going to just set it in the root hormone, and then I'm just going to set the cutting right on top of that pot. And then when I'm looking at this one here, same thing, very similar. We've got this stem section. I'm going to go ahead and take that. And then I'm going to take this tip cutting, which is a little bit different because it is a tip. I'm going to put it in the root hormone. And I'm going to put 2 cuttings in a pot. That's not something you have to do, but in this purpose here, I think it'll be a much fuller, nicer looking pot when we get all done if we put a couple of cuttings in a pot. So what I've shown you is a couple different ways to propagate these different, whether it's a senecio or a sedum. They're both very, very similar in this case. And then I've also shown you that we want to go ahead and use a little bit of the root hormone. It's just to incentivize those roots to come on out. And we found right here at the greenhouse that this Jack's fertilizer for houseplants is very effective for the in-home use. Now I've saved the best for last, because one of the things we find with all of these different types of sedums that form a pad is that if you're patient, you can actually generate a new plant right off the end of each one of these pads. And if that's you, if you want to try propagating like that, really all you have to do is set that pad right on the soil, or if you've got a damp paper towel that you can keep moist, perhaps put it in a Ziploc bag with a little bit of moisture on it. All we're trying to do is give an environment for the plant to actually grow roots and create a new plant. And so right here we have that type of propagation from the pads in this pot. I've got 3 little plants right here. And so if you look real careful, what you'll see right here is there's actually little roots that have started growing right here on this side of the pad. And there's our little plant already coming up. So I've got 3 of them right here, and that's more than enough to fill this pot up. It's a patience game, but it's a fun game because you just sit there and watch these little guys turn into a brand new plant.